A copper wheel rises from the side of a red mountain in southeastern Arizona, 40 feet tall, 47 blades, a lock cast in the shape of a sun. Closer now, pipes branching across the rock face like veins on the back of an old woman's hand, some of them still dripping water, after almost 18 years of being left alone. Closer still, a girl stands at the base of the wheel, 17 years old, a backpack on her shoulder, an envelope in her hand that has been waiting in a drawer for 13 years. Inside it, a key carved with a seven-pointed sun. 4 miles south, three vehicles begin climbing a dirt road. In a warm yellow kitchen, an older woman lifts a wooden spoon and stops. The sky over Tucson was the color of an old peach left on a windowsill, pale, bruised. The kind of morning that does not announce itself, the kind of morning that simply arrives. Juniper Holloway stood at the window of room number 9, 17 years old, 3 days from 18, a cat named Biscuit at her feet. She did not move for a long time. Outside, the bougainvillea on the back fence had bloomed overnight, pink as a fresh scar. She watched a hummingbird hover near it, then dart away, then come back, then dart away again, because that was what hummingbirds did. They could not stay still. Junie envied them. She had been still for 17 years. Sage Hill Home for Children was a low brick building on the south end of Tucson. Built in 1942, roof sagging, hallways smelling of floor wax and old coffee. A bell in the kitchen that nobody rang anymore because the cord had rotted off in 1996 and no one had ever replaced it. Junie knew every sound in that building. The hollow thump of the bathroom door at 3 a.m., the squeak of the second hallway floorboard, the whistle of the radiator on cold nights. She knew them the way you know your own heartbeat, without choosing, without meaning to. She turned from the window, picked up her sketchbook from the desk, sat down on the bed. Biscuit jumped up beside her. Old cat, 16 years, one ear missing a notch from a fight he had picked when he was younger and meaner. He purred against her thigh. She opened the sketchbook to a fresh page. She drew the hummingbird from memory, because she could. Because she had been drawing things from memory since she was 4 years old. Things she did not want to lose. Faces, hands, the exact slant of afternoon light on a wall, anything that might leave her one day. Which was most things. She drew the small wings, the needle beak, the little iridescent throat. And then, without thinking, she drew a woman she did not recognize. She stopped, looked at the drawing. The woman had dark hair, a long neck, eyes that were Junie's own eyes, sitting in a face that was not Junie's face. Junie set the pencil down. Her hand was shaking, which was odd, because nothing had happened yet. Down the hall a door opened. Footsteps. The familiar slow tread of Director Wendell Brigham coming from his office. He stopped outside her room. He knocked. 3 knocks, even, spaced. "Junie," he said, "come down to my office, now, please." His voice was wrong. She knew his voice the way she knew the building, the way he said her name when she had forgotten her chores, the way he said it when a foster family had passed her over, the way he said it on Sunday mornings, polite and tired. This was none of those. This was a voice that had been rehearsed. She closed the sketchbook. She kissed Biscuit on the top of his head, and she went. Wendell Brigham had been director of Sage Hill for as long as Junie had been there. Thin man, 63, reading glasses on the end of his nose, a cardigan the color of old oatmeal. He was not a cruel man. He was not a warm man. He was a man who had learned to manage feelings the way a bookkeeper manages numbers, quietly, with both hands without spilling any. He looked up when she came in, and for half a second something moved behind his eyes that she had never seen before. Not authority, not boredom, fear. She sat down in the wooden chair across from his desk. She had sat in this chair more times than she could count. She knew the grain of the armrest. She knew the way the afternoon sun came through the blinds at 3 p.m. and laid amber stripes across the floor. She did not know this version of him. "Junie," he said. Then he stopped. He cleared his throat. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk. He reached in and he took out an envelope. It was old, not the kind of old that comes from sitting in a desk for a year or two. This was the kind of old you could feel just by looking at it. Brittle at the edges, soft in the middle, sealed with a strip of tape that had yellowed and curled in on itself like a dried leaf. And on the front, in careful, unhurried handwriting, two words, Juniper Halloway. She did not reach for it yet. "Where did that come from?" she asked. Brigham set it on the desk between them. He took off his reading glasses, set them on top of a stack of papers. Without them, his face looked older, more exposed, like a house with the curtains pulled back. "A woman brought it," he said. 13 years ago, you were 5. Pause. "She said I was to give it to you on your 18th birthday, and no day before." He paused again. "She was very specific about that." Junie looked at the envelope. She did not pick it up. "What's in it?" "I don't know." "In 13 years, you never opened it?" "No." She looked at him. The fear was still there, smaller now, controlled, but it was there. "Did you know her?" she asked. "The woman who brought it?" His eyes went down to the desk. "No." It wasn't a clean no. It had texture to it. She filed that away. The way she had filed away every strange, small thing about her life inside this building. The way every orphan files things away. Because they are the only people you have. She reached out, picked up the envelope. It was heavier than it looked. She peeled back the yellowed tape. It came away easily, as if it had been waiting. She tipped the envelope onto the desk. 3 things fell out. The first was a key, heavy, dark copper, with a square bow at one end and a long barrel at the other, and carved into the bow in tiny, careful strokes the shape of a sun. 7 points, spread out like spokes. It sat in her palm with a weight that felt deliberate, like it was reminding her it was real. The second was a map, folded into quarters, aged to the color of weak tea. She opened it slowly. The paper crackled. It showed terrain she did not recognize. Mountain ridges, a dry riverbed, a dirt road that wound for miles and ended at a small X drawn in the same dark ink as the rest of the lines. The X was beside a marking that looked like a half circle with 7 small lines coming off the top of it. A sun, the same sun as the key. The third was a sheet of paper. She unfolded it. A single sentence, centered, same handwriting as the envelope. "The sundial wheel waits for you at Ironwood Pass. Come alone. Come quickly." She read it twice. She set it down. She looked up at Brigham. He was sweating, just slightly, just along the hairline, in a room where the air conditioner was running and the morning was not yet hot. "Mr. Brigham," she said, "who is she?" He shook his head. "I don't know, Junie. You held this for 13 years, and you never looked. And you don't know." "I knew her face. Once. I don't know her name. She paid the home a small sum to keep the envelope safe. She made me sign a paper. The paper said I was not to open it. I have never broken a promise that came with a signature." "That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me." He almost smiled. It died on his lips. He reached into the same drawer, took out a folded stack of bills. $200, mostly 20s, soft, old. The kind of money someone keeps for a long time and then gives to someone else. He pushed it across the desk. "Take this," he said, "for the road." "I haven't said I'm going anywhere." "You're going to Ironwood Pass." "How do you know?" "Because I would. If I were you, I would go too." She picked up the money. He took out a small piece of paper, wrote a phone number on it, pushed it across the desk. What's this? A friend, in case you need one. A man named Caspian Yost. He fixes typewriters in a back room on Stone Avenue. He has been waiting for someone to call this number for almost 17 years. She stared at the paper. How does an orphanage director know a man who has been waiting for a phone call for 17 years? He met her eyes. For the first time in 17 years of knowing him, he met her eyes all the way. I made a promise once, Junie, a long time ago, and then I broke it. Calling that number if you ever need to is how I pay back what I owe. She did not know what to say to that, so she said the only true thing she could. Thank you. He nodded once. He looked very small behind the desk. One more thing, he said. Junie, if a man in uniform comes to your door before you reach that pass, don't open it. Not for any badge, not for any warrant, not for any voice that sounds like the law. She looked at him. Whose law? Their law. He did not explain. She did not ask him to. She put the key and the map and the letter back in the envelope. She folded the top down. She slid it into the front pocket of the backpack she had brought with her into the room without knowing why she had brought it. She had brought everything. She had packed last night without meaning to. The way her hands had known something, her head had not. She stood up. She walked to the door. Then she stopped. With her hand on the frame, she turned back. Mr. Brigham? Yes. Did you ever see me, in all those years, as anything more than a file? He looked at her for a long moment. Junie, I saw you every day, as a girl who deserved more than I could give her, and I am sorry that I am only telling you that now. She nodded. She walked out into the hallway. She did not look back. Biscuit was waiting on her bed. She picked him up, held him against her shoulder. He purred. He was warm. He smelled like sunlight and old quilts in 1,000 small mornings. You can't come, she whispered. I'm sorry. She kissed his head. She set him down. She picked up her backpack, the one with 2 changes of clothes, a paperback novel she had read 4 times, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, a pencil case with 3 pencils inside, a drawing pad, and now an envelope, and $43 she had saved, plus $200 from Brigham. She walked down the hall, past room 4, past the bathroom door, past the kitchen with the broken bell. Out the front door, into the bright morning. The bus to Wilcox left at 10:15. Junie sat by the window, hands flat on her thighs, backpack between her feet, the envelope in her lap. The city slid by. Saguaros, strip malls, a billboard for a personal injury lawyer with a face the size of a kitchen table, a car wash, a taqueria, another billboard, another saguaro, then desert, real desert. The kind that has no edges. That just keeps going, until the mountains in the far distance become the same color as the sky, and you cannot tell where one stops and the other starts. She put her forehead against the window. It was cool. She closed her eyes. She tried to remember what her face had looked like. The woman in her sketch. She could not. The shape was gone already, which was strange, because she remembered everything she drew. That was her whole gift, her whole curse. She remembered the slant of the light on a wall from 11 years ago. She remembered the freckle on the wrist of a foster mother who had held her for 6 weeks and given her back. She remembered the color of the socks she had been wearing the day Brigham had told her gently that no more families were coming this year. But she could not remember the woman in the sketch, whose eyes had been her own. The bus pulled into Wilcox at 12:40, a town of 3,000 people, 2 stoplights, a railroad track, a diner with a faded sign that said PIE. She walked through it. She did not stop at the diner. She stopped at a gas station on the east side of town and bought a bottle of water and a bag of pretzels. The woman at the register looked at her. You hiking, honey? Sort of. Where to? Junie hesitated. Ironwood Pass. The woman went still, just for a second. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that is mostly mouth and no eyes. Long walk. I know. You got water? Yes. More than that one bottle. The woman reached under the counter, pulled out a second bottle, pushed it across to her. Did not charge her for it. You take the road east, past the cattle gate, past the dry wash. You'll come to a fork in about 3 miles. You go left. How do you know where I'm going? Because nobody else asked for Ironwood Pass, honey. Nobody alive. Junie did not know what that meant. She took the second bottle. She thanked the woman. She walked out into the afternoon. The road east of Wilcox went from pavement to gravel to packed dirt in less than a mile. Junie walked. The sun was on her left shoulder. The wind came across the scrub brush in a steady whisper. Hot, dry, patient. She walked past the cattle gate, past the dry wash, past a coyote that watched her from a low rise of red rock, and then turned and trotted away without urgency. She walked. The mountains ahead got closer. The town behind got smaller. She came to the fork. She went left. And after another mile of walking, past a stand of mesquite, past a fallen barbed wire fence, past a rusted oil drum half buried in the sand, she saw the smoke, a thin gray line, rising from a chimney, coming up out of nothing. She walked toward it. The cabin sat in a small hollow between two low ridges. Adobe walls, a tin roof, a porch with a hand-carved chair on it, a row of glass bottles along the windowsill, each one catching the late afternoon light and throwing little circles of green and amber and blue onto the wood. A garden in the back, tomatoes, squash, beans climbing up a wooden lattice, a woman on the porch. Older, maybe 64, maybe 65. White hair pulled back in a loose braid, hands that had worked all their lives resting now in her lap. She watched Junie come up the path. She did not stand. She did not speak. She watched. Junie stopped at the bottom step. "Hello," she said. The woman looked at her. For a long moment, then her face did something that Junie did not have a word for. Something tightened, then released, then tightened again, then went very still. "Come up here, child," the woman said quietly. "Get out of that sun." Junie climbed the 3 porch steps. The woman pointed to the other chair. "Sit." Junie sat. The woman did not introduce herself. She got up, slowly, like her knees hurt. She went inside. She came back out with a small wooden tray, a blue ceramic mug, steam rising from it, mint leaves floating on the surface, and on a small plate 4 butter cookies. Round, the edges crinkled, the smell of them buttery and clean. She set the tray on the small table between the chairs. "Drink that," she said. "Eat those, then we'll talk." Junie did not argue. She had not eaten anything but pretzels since 5 a.m. She picked up the mug, sipped, mint, hot, honey at the bottom. She picked up a cookie, bit, salt and butter and something else. Maybe almond. She closed her eyes. She had not known you could eat something that tasted like being remembered. The woman watched her eat. She said nothing for a long time. When Junie had finished one cookie and started on a second, the woman finally spoke. "What's your name?" "Juniper Halloway." "Junie." "Yes." "Where are you going, Junie?" Junie wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She thought about lying. She did not know why she would lie. She did not lie. Ironwood Pass. The woman's hand went still on the arm of her chair for 3 full breaths. Then she nodded. Why? Junie reached into her backpack, took out the envelope, set it on the table between them. The woman did not pick it up. She just looked at it. Then she looked at Junie's face, and then her own face did the thing again. The tightening, the release, the stillness. "You have her eyes," she said softly. "Exactly hers." Junie's chest pulled tight. Whose eyes? The woman did not answer. She got up. Slowly, she went inside. Junie waited. When the woman came back, she was carrying a folded square of blue, knitted, soft, the blue of a desert sky just after sundown. A scarf. She held it out. Take this with you. The desert is colder than you think after the sun goes down, and the wind on Ironwood Pass cuts straight through you. Wrap it around your neck. Tuck the ends inside your collar. Junie took it. It was lighter than it looked. It smelled like cedar. Did you make this? Yes. When? A long time ago. I made several. I gave most of them away. I kept one. For a girl I thought might come back to me one day. And here you are. Junie's hands closed around the scarf. Her throat hurt. I don't understand, she whispered. Do I know you? The woman looked at her. Her eyes were very bright. The kind of bright that comes before tears that have been held for years. You knew me once, a long time ago. You probably don't remember. Did you? Did you take care of me when I was little? Junie? The woman's voice broke. She took a breath. She steadied herself. Junie, you need to get to Ironwood before dark. The light fails fast out there. There is a key in that envelope. Yes. Yes. There is a map. Yes. Then go. Use them. When you are done with what waits for you there, come back here, if you can. I will be on this porch. Junie did not move. Why won't you tell me who you are? The woman closed her eyes. She put a hand against the wooden post of the porch. For balance. For something. Because the moment I tell you, child, you become someone to find. And there are still people who want to find you. Get to the wheel. See what your blood left for you. And then come back. And then I will tell you everything. I promise you that. On my life. Junie looked at her. Junie wanted to argue. She did not. Something in the woman's face stopped her. She stood up. She picked up the backpack. She wrapped the blue scarf around her neck, tucked the ends inside her collar. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. She walked down the porch steps. She turned at the bottom. I'll come back. I know, the woman said. I don't even know your name. The woman smiled. It was the saddest smile Junie had ever seen on a human face. Mavis, the woman said. My name is Mavis Eldridge. Junie walked away from the cabin. She walked east. She did not look back. If she had looked back, she would have seen Mavis Eldridge sit down on the porch step, slowly, carefully, like a woman who had been holding herself upright for 30 years and could finally let go of one small breath. Mavis sat for a long time. Then she went inside. She walked to the kitchen. She opened the third drawer of the small oak dresser by the window, the one she had not opened in 4 years, because some drawers you only open when you have to. Inside was an envelope. Inside the envelope was a black and white photograph. A young woman, 26, dark hair, a long neck, eyes that were Junie's eyes. She was holding a baby. The baby was wrapped in a blanket the color of a desert sky at sundown. On the back of the photo in pencil were 5 words, Saoirse and Junie. November 2006. Mavis sat down on the kitchen floor. She held the photograph against her chest, and for the first time in 13 years, she let herself cry, out loud. Not quiet, not careful, the way she had wanted to cry in the front pew of the small church in Wilcox on a January afternoon in 2008, when her niece's casket had been lowered into the ground, when she had not let herself break, because there had been a small child in a car seat in the back of her truck, a baby just turned 1 year old, a baby who had lost the only voice she had ever recognized as home, and babies needed someone steady to come home to. Now the baby was walking east into the desert. Now the baby was almost a woman. Now Mavis sat on the kitchen floor and cried for 30 years all at once. She cried for Orrin. She cried for Saoirse. She cried for the small Junie she had given away to keep alive. She cried because this child had taken the scarf and put it on. And the scarf had fit. And she had not known if the scarf would fit. She had not known if she would even recognize the girl. She had not known if her own heart would hold up. And it had. It had held up. The way hearts do. When they have to. Junie walked east for 2 miles. The road got worse, then it stopped being a road. Then it was a trail. Then the trail was a suggestion, a scratch through the scrub. The mountains opened ahead of her like the jaws of something ancient. Red rock, vertical, sheer. The sun was 3 fingers above the western ridge. She walked. The blue scarf bumped against her collarbone. The envelope was zipped into the front pocket of her backpack. The woman in her sketch, the one she could not remember. That woman had a name now. Saoirse. The name had come into Junie's head without warning. Out on the path, as if the desert itself had said it. She did not know how she knew. She just knew. The trail wound around a stand of pale rock formations, then up a long, shallow grade, then between 2 boulders the size of small houses, and then she came around the last bend, and she stopped, because she had to, because she could not have taken another step if her life had depended on it. The mountain ahead was red, not the dull red of brick. The red of a coal that has been blown on, deep, living. The color of something that has been hot for 10 million years and is still warm. And built into the face of it, built into the face of the mountain like it had grown there, was a wheel, a copper wheel, 40 feet tall. She would learn later it was 12 meters. 40 feet, give or take. Bigger than a house, bigger than the orphanage chapel, bigger than anything she had ever seen made by human hands. It had 47 blades. Each blade was carved with letters in a language she did not recognize. Latin, maybe. The letters had been polished smooth by wind and rain. Some of them still caught the light. Some of them had darkened to the green of old pennies. At the center of the wheel, a lock, cast in the shape of a sun. 7 points, 7 pins, spread out around a central socket the size of a man's fist. And running away from the wheel, branching across the red rock face like veins on the back of an old woman's hand, were copper pipes, hundreds of them, some as thin as a finger, some as thick as a man's thigh. They climbed the mountain in patterns that looked random and were not. Junie understood looking at them that they had been laid out by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The pipes glittered where the sun caught them. Some of them still dripped water, tiny silver beads, falling, striking the rock below, making small, dark stains. After almost 18 years, after almost 18 years of being left alone, the pipes were still alive. Junie put her hand against her chest. She could feel her heart through the thin cotton of her shirt. It was beating fast, not from the climb, from recognition. She did not understand why she recognized this place. She had never seen it. She knew that. She had never set foot in this canyon. She had never stood on this stretch of red rock. But something in her chest knew it. Something in her chest said, "Oh, oh, there you are." She walked forward. One step, then another, then another. She crossed the open ground in front of the wheel. Her boots made small, dry sounds on the gravel. She came up to the wheel. Up close, it was even bigger. She reached out. She touched one of the blades. The metal was warm. Of course it was. It had been sitting in the desert sun all day. But it was warm in another way too. The way a horse is warm under your hand. Like there was something inside it. Something patient. She put her hand on the lock. She traced the 7 points of the sun. She found in the very center a small socket. Square. The exact shape of the bow of the key in her pocket. She took the envelope out of her backpack. She tipped the key into her palm. It looked almost embarrassed in her hand. Such a small thing for such a big door. She held it up. She slid it into the socket. It went in smoothly. She turned it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a sound. Deep inside the wheel. A click. Then another. Then 5 more. 7 clicks. 7 pins. Each one falling into place. Each one with a sound that was not quite metal. That was almost. Almost. Like a bell. Like the small bell in a country church on a Sunday morning. The wheel began to turn. She stepped back. It turned slowly, smoothly, without grinding, without protest, as if it had been oiled yesterday, as if 47 blades and 7 pins and 12 meters of copper had been waiting almost 18 years for this exact moment. To turn. For her. It turned a quarter rotation. Then it stopped, and behind it, set into the rock face, a door, stone, 3 tons of it. She could tell by the look of it, carved smooth at the edges, fitted into the mountain so cleanly you would not have known it was there. The stone door began to slide sideways. It slid with a low sound, a grinding hum that she felt more in her chest than heard with her ears. She did not move. The door slid all the way open, a rectangle of darkness. A breath of air came out, cool, mineral, smelling of dust and stone and, faintly, water far away. She stood in front of the dark rectangle. Behind her the desert, ahead of her, the mountain. She took a step forward, then another. Then she crossed the threshold. The room inside the mountain was small, a wooden table at the center, a single wooden chair pushed in against it, a narrow bed against the far wall, the mattress covered with a canvas tarp, bookshelves along the left wall, floor to ceiling, packed with books, their spines faded, their titles barely legible in the dim light coming in from the open door behind her, a lantern on an iron hook in the ceiling, a wooden peg by the door where a coat had once hung. Nothing personal on the walls. No photographs, no paintings, only the shelves, the books, the peg, the bed, the lantern. A room left carefully by someone who had known how to leave things so they would last. Junie walked in. She set her backpack down on the table. Her boots made small echoes. She reached up, took the lantern off the hook, found a tin of matches on the shelf beside it, lit the wick on the second try. The flame caught, held, threw a warm amber glow against the walls. She raised the lantern, and she saw at the back of the room, where she had thought was wall, a passageway, cut directly into the stone, narrow, just wide enough for one person, leading deeper. She held the lantern higher. She walked toward it. The temperature dropped with every step. The rock on either side bore the marks of tools, small chisel scars, patient, methodical. The marks of a man who had done this himself, inch by inch, year by year. She walked 20 feet, 30, and then she saw the pipes. On the left wall first. Copper, old, but not corroded through. Coated with something that had held up across decades. They ran horizontally for a few feet and then curved up into the ceiling and disappeared. More pipes on the right wall, thicker, running the other direction, descending into the floor. Joints, valves, iron handles, painted red once, faded now to the pale ghost of red. She kept walking, and then the passage opened, and she stopped breathing. The cavern was enormous. The lantern light barely reached the far wall. The ceiling arched up into the dark above her. The walls had been shaped, smoothed, worked. The floor was poured concrete, cracked in places, solid where it mattered, and filling the space, filling every inch of it, were machines. Steel tanks against the walls, each one as tall as a small house, connected to each other into the pipes by a web of tubing that ran in every direction. Methodical, complex, like the inner workings of something alive. Gauges mounted on the tanks at regular intervals, levers jutting from pipes, valves the size of wagon wheels, and in the center, on a raised platform, a console, 6 feet wide, covered in instruments, switches, indicator lights behind clouded glass, a screen gray and dormant set into the center. She walked toward it slowly. She set the lantern on the edge of the console. She wiped the dust off the screen with the hem of her shirt. A metal nameplate emerged from under the grime. She wiped it again. It read, Orphan Ballantyne, Weather and Groundwater Station 1, 1968. Below the nameplate, carved into the metal of the console itself, in the same careful hand as the envelope, in the same careful hand as the map, in the same careful hand as everything in this mountain. 5 words, for those who come after the dust. Junie stood very still. She put her hand on the edge of the console. The metal was cool under her fingers, and then, without warning, it came on. The screen began to glow, faintly, the way an ember glows when you breathe on it after a long cold night. The glow strengthened. The indicator lights along the top of the console flickered. Amber, green, amber. The machines around her shifted from silence into something that was barely more than silence. A deep, low hum. She felt it in her chest before she heard it, like the mountain itself had taken a breath, like it had been holding it for a long time. Text appeared on the screen, letter by letter, deliberate, slow. Weather and Groundwater Station 1. System status. Dormant. 6,570 days since last Guardian activity. A pause, the cursor blinking. Then, initiating identity verification. The hum in the machines deepened. She could hear something moving, far below her, deep beneath the concrete floor. A slow, rhythmic vibration, like water moving through pipes that had not held water for nearly 2 decades. Like blood returning to a limb that had gone numb. The screen changed. Identity verification complete. And below that, in letters slightly larger than everything else, welcome home, Ballantyne bloodline. Junie read the words once, then again, then a third time. Then she stepped back from the console. She put her hand against her mouth. Because she did not have any family. She had never had any family. Her intake file at Sage Hill had 2 words written in the family information field. Unknown. Abandoned. She had read it once, when she was 13, when Brigham had left the file on his desk and stepped out of the room. She had stood there and looked at those 2 words, and then she had put the file back down, and she had never asked to read it again. Not unknown, not abandoned. Ballantyne bloodline. She did not know what to do with that. She did not know what to do with any of it. She walked back into the entrance room. She sat down at the wooden table. She put her head in her hands. She breathed. In, out, in. She thought about Mavis on the porch. She thought about the woman in her sketch, with Junie's eyes, Saoirse. She said the name out loud. The room held the sound, did not give it back. She thought about the words on the screen. Bloodline. She had a bloodline. She had a name that was not the name on her file. She had a mother somewhere in the past, a woman called Saoirse, a woman whose eyes she had drawn that morning without knowing. She had an ancestor named Orphan Ballantyne who had carved a station inside a mountain in 1968. For her. Eventually. For her. She did not know any of these people. She knew them in her chest, which was a different thing. She lifted her head. She wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist. She had not known she had been crying. She stood up. She walked back into the machine room. She approached the console. The screen still glowed, and then it changed again. A new line appeared. External activity detected. Southern Approach Road. A grid appeared on the screen. Compass directions, distance markers, some boxes dark, a few boxes alive. One box showed an image, a camera, old, low resolution, but functional, built into the rock face somewhere outside, and the camera showed a vehicle, then another vehicle behind it, then a third, three vehicles, coming up the trail toward the mountain. Junie leaned in. The first vehicle was a county sheriff's cruiser, bar lights dark, not running, but unmistakable in shape. The second was a black SUV, new, tinted windows, civilian plates. The third was a flatbed pickup, with a load covered by a tarp, tied down at four corners. She watched them climb. She watched the dust they kicked up. She watched the way the lead vehicle moved with purpose, not searching, not exploring, coming, knowing exactly where to come. She stepped back from the console. She looked at the lantern. She looked at the open door behind her miles away through the passageway in the entrance room. The door she had left open. The door that had taken half a turn of a 40-foot wheel to open. The vehicles on the screen were still 7 minutes from the trailhead. Maybe 10, maybe less. She had been alone in this mountain for 20 minutes. She was not going to be alone in this mountain for much longer. She thought about Brigham. If a man in uniform comes to your door, don't open it. She thought about Mavis. When you are done with what waits for you there, come back to me. She thought about the woman who had drawn the map. Come alone. Come quickly. She picked up the lantern. She walked back into the entrance room. She closed the front door behind her. From the inside, she slid the iron bolt that Orrin Ballantyne had built into the frame. The bolt that fell into a socket in the floor with a soft, heavy sound. The sound of a mountain being locked from the inside. She walked back into the machine room. She set the lantern on the console. She stood in front of the screen. She watched the three vehicles climb. She watched the dust rise. And from somewhere in the back of her chest, somewhere her mother had whispered into when she was a baby, somewhere her grandfather had sat down in the mountain in 1968, somewhere her great-aunt Mavis had kept warm with butter cookies in a blue scarf in 13 years of silent watching. Somewhere old, somewhere true. A small, steady voice rose, not panicked, not frightened, just clear. It said, "You are not unknown. You are not abandoned. You are home. Now figure out who is coming through that mountain to find you and what your name was before they took it from you." Junie sat down in front of the console. She pulled the lantern closer, and she waited. The three vehicles took 11 minutes to climb the trail. Junie watched them on the screen. She did not move from the console. She watched the cruiser stop at the foot of the rise, the black SUV pull up behind it, the flatbed pickup ease in alongside them and kill its engine. Doors opened. Men stepped out, 5 of them. One in the olive drab uniform of the Cochise County Sheriff's Department, a silver star on his chest, a wide-brimmed hat pushed back on his head. 3 deputies behind him, and one man from the SUV, tall, late 40s, dark suit, no tie, the kind of man who does not wear a uniform, but who answers to people who do. Junie's hands went cold. She unzipped her backpack. She took out the lantern oil. She refilled the lantern. Because her hands needed to be doing something, because her hands were shaking, because if she did not give her hands a task right now, they were going to start trembling so hard she would not be able to hide it. She watched the sheriff walk toward the wheel. He stopped 20 feet from it. He looked up for a long moment, the way a man looks at something he has known about for a long time but has never been allowed to see. Then he walked the rest of the way to the door. He raised his fist. He knocked 3 times, hard. The sound of it traveled through 47 blades of copper and 3 tons of stone and 100 feet of mountain passage. It reached Junie at the console as a soft, heavy thud. Then his voice, muffled by stone but clear enough. "This is Sheriff Hollis Tranter. Cochise County. I have a court-issued warrant to inspect this property. Open this door. Junie did not move. He knocked again. I know you're in there, Miss Halloway. We watched you walk in. Open the door. Halloway, not Ballantyne, so he didn't know yet. Or he knew, and he wanted her to think he didn't. She filed that away. She walked back through the passage, into the entrance room. She stood 3 feet behind the bolted door. Show me the warrant, she said. Slide it under the door. A long pause. The door doesn't have a gap underneath, miss. There's no way to slide it under. Then I'm not opening it. Miss Halloway, this is a state water utility facility under Arizona Department of Water Resources jurisdiction, Statute 45-141. You are trespassing. My grandfather built it. She said it before she had decided to say it. Silence on the other side of the door. A long, long silence. When the sheriff spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, a little tired. Then you know what's at stake. Open the door, child. Let's have this conversation like grown people, before this gets worse than it needs to be. She did not open the door. She stood very still. She thought about Brigham's voice. Don't open it. Not for any badge. Not for any warrant. Not for any voice that sounds like the law. She walked back to the console. She sat down. She put her head in her hands for one breath only. Then she lifted her head, and she got to work. Because the sheriff had said the warrant covered the building. Because she did not know how long the bolted door would hold 3 tons of stone shut against a determined man with men behind him. Because if she was going to lose everything in this mountain in the next hour, she was going to take what she could first. She stood up. She looked at the wall behind the console. There, in the back corner, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. A second passage, lower, narrower, the kind you would have to duck through. She picked up the lantern. She ducked. She went. The passage was short, 8 feet, maybe 10. It opened into a room half the size of the machine room, a room of paper, filing cabinets along 2 walls, 4 of them, old metal, paint worn off in patches, a wooden desk against the 3rd wall, surface covered with flat document trays, boxes on shelves above the desk, labeled in the same careful hand as the envelope, dates, categories, years, and on the desk, sitting in plain sight, plugged into a small power supply box that drew from the same circuit as the lantern she carried, a small external hard drive, the activity light blinking slow and steady, green, patient. She walked to the desk. She picked it up. She turned it over. On the back, in permanent marker in Orrin Ballantyne's handwriting, 5 words. For Junie, when the time comes. Junie closed her hand around it. Her chest hurt. The man she had never met had written her name on the back of a hard drive, years before he had ever set eyes on her. She slid the drive into the inside pocket of the blue scarf. She wrapped the scarf tighter around her neck. The hard drive sat against her collarbone like a small, steady heart. Then she went to the filing cabinets. She opened the 3rd drawer of the 2nd cabinet. She did not know why she opened that drawer first, except that something in her had said that one. She pulled out folders fast, data sheets, pressure readings, correspondence on state letterhead, a photocopied article from a newspaper. She did not have time to read them. She grabbed a folder, she grabbed another, and then her hand stopped. On a folder thicker than the others, held closed with a rubber band that snapped at her touch, dried to brittleness. The label on the tab was not a date, not a category, a name. Saoirse Ballantyne, legal documents. She stood very still, on the other side of the mountain, 3 feet of stone away. She could hear Sheriff Tranter raise his voice to one of the deputies, telling him to bring the bolt cutters, telling him to get the man from the SUV. She opened the folder. The first page was a legal filing, the kind she had seen on television. Never in real life. At the top in bold type, Saoirse Eleanor Ballantyne plaintiff versus State of Arizona Department of Water Resources in Lachlan Drexler in his official capacity as director. Defendants, Superior Court of Arizona, Cochise County, filed March 14, 2007. Junie read the heading 3 times. The name moved through her. Drexler. She did not know that name. She knew it now. Her eyes ran fast over the body of the document. Illegal diversion of public water resources, unauthorized issuance of extraction permits, conflict of interest, personal enrichment through public office. Her mother had filed a lawsuit. Her mother had stood up in writing, in a public court, and had said this man is stealing. Her mother, Sarah Bersha. She turned the next page. Behind the filing was a stack of subsequent documents, motions, responses from the state's attorneys, a hearing notice, another motion, and at the back, a single page with a date stamp from October 2007, motion to dismiss. Granted, insufficient evidence, the ruling said. The extraction permits in question had been issued through proper channels. Their validity could not be challenged without technical expert testimony, which the plaintiff had failed to provide. The court had dismissed it. Junie's chest was tight. She turned the next page. A photocopied newspaper clipping. Gray tones, hard to read. A short article. Bottom of the local section. The headline read, "Local woman killed in highway accident." The date was January 2008. 3 months after the dismissal. Junie read, Saoirse Eleanor Ballantyne, 27, of Cochise County, had been killed when her vehicle left State Route 186 during a nighttime drive. Road conditions had been blamed. No other vehicles involved. Funeral arrangements, private. 27. Her mother had been 27. Her mother had been alive in October. Her mother had been dead in January. And between October and January. 3 months. Junie's hands were shaking. She turned the next page. A document she recognized by format. She had seen one like it before, in her own file at Sage Hill, at 13 years old, when Brigham had left the file on his desk. A birth certificate. Baby girl, born November 3rd, 2006, at Cochise County Regional Medical Center. Mother, Saoirse Eleanor Ballantyne, age 26. Father, unknown. Baby's name, a single word, Juniper. Junie did not breathe. She stood in the small room inside the mountain, and she held the certificate. She had been a daughter. She had been a daughter with a name that belonged to her. Juniper. Ballantyne. She had been 1 year and 2 months old when her mother died. She had been 5 years old when someone had given her to Sage Hill with a different last name written on her papers. She had been 17 years old, 3 days from her 18th birthday, standing in a room inside a mountain, reading her own birth certificate for the first time. A voice through the stone, muffled. The sheriff, calling for the deputy. "Bring those cutters, we're going through this door." Junie shoved the folder into her backpack. She shoved the other folder she had grabbed in next to it. She zipped the backpack. She slung it over her shoulder. She picked up the lantern. She turned to leave. And then she stopped, because she had to. Because on the desk where the hard drive had been, she saw something she had missed. A small black notebook, slightly bent at one corner, like someone had been writing in it recently. Like the writer had set it down, meaning to come back to it. She picked it up. She opened it to the last entry. The handwriting was uneven, the hand of someone old, or tired, or both. The entry was not addressed to the world. It was addressed to someone specific. It began, "If Junie finds this, then my prayers have been answered, and she is safe." Junie sat down on the floor, right there, in the records room, with 3 men outside trying to break in through 3 tons of stone. She read, She was never abandoned. She was hidden. There is a difference. Saoirse and Mavis hid her to protect her, and I helped them do it. And I have carried that weight every day since. Because hiding her also meant leaving her alone. I want her to know we thought of her every day. I want her to know that the wheel and the station and everything in this mountain now belong to her. Not because she is the only option, because she is the right one. I chose her the way the system chose her, because the water knows its own. Below that in shakier script, Drexler thinks he won when he killed my daughter. He did not. The fight only paused. Below that one more line. Junie, if you are reading this, find Mavis. Trust no one in uniform. The man you cannot see is the one to fear. Junie closed the notebook. She held it against her chest. She did not cry. Not yet. Not yet. Outside the door, far through stone, the grinding sound of bolt cutters being pulled out of a truck bed. She stood up. She put the notebook in her backpack. She walked out of the records room, down the short passage, into the machine room. She walked across the machine room, down the long passage, into the entrance room. She did not stop at the front door, because there was something behind the books on the back wall of the entrance room that she had not noticed when she first walked in. She had walked past it twice. The third time she walked past it, she saw it, a second door, small, wooden, set into the back left corner where the shelves met the wall, half hidden behind a stack of books on the bottom shelf. She crouched. She pushed the books aside. The door was no bigger than the front of a kitchen cabinet. Iron handle, no lock. She turned the handle. The door opened inward. Behind it, a tunnel, round, smooth, about 4 feet high, cut directly through the mountain, sloping gently downward. Junie stared at it. Of course. Of course, Orrin Ballantyne had built a back way out. A man who had spent 6 years carving a station into a mountain. A man who had hidden a hard drive with his granddaughter's name on it. A man like that did not build only one door. She heard the bolt cutters bite into the iron bolt on the front door. She heard the deputy grunt with effort. She did not have much time. She ducked into the small back tunnel. She pulled the wooden door shut behind her. She crawled, lantern in one hand, backpack dragging. The tunnel went on longer than she expected. 40 feet, 60. She lost count. It sloped down, then it leveled out, then it rose again, and then, ahead, a small square of pale light. Twilight. She crawled toward it. She pushed aside a tangle of dead brush that had grown over the opening. She emerged on the back side of the mountain. A different slope, a different wash. 20 feet above a trail that wound down through scrub and rock and disappeared into the dusk. She climbed out. She stood up. She brushed dirt off her knees. Behind her on the other side of the mountain, she could hear the front door give, the grinding boom of 3 tons of stone sliding open under bolt cutters and a winch, the shouts of men. She did not stay to listen. She walked. She walked west. She walked toward the place where the smoke had been. The cabin was warm. Junie could see the light in the windows from a quarter-mile away. Yellow. Steady. Like a lantern that had been left burning for someone. She came down the path slowly. Her legs hurt. She had walked across the desert twice in one day. The blue scarf was still around her neck. The hard drive still pressed against her collarbone. The notebook was in her backpack. The folder with her birth certificate was in her backpack. A second mother had been waiting in this cabin since the moment she had left it. Junie did not knock. She climbed the porch. She put her hand on the door. The door opened before she could push it. Mavis was standing on the other side, white hair loose now, down over her shoulders, a wooden spoon in her hand, the smell of chicken soup behind her in the warm yellow kitchen. Mavis looked at her. Mavis's face did something Junie did not have a word for. Then Mavis stepped forward, and she pulled Junie into her arms, and she held her. She held her hard, the way you hold something you thought you had lost forever. Junie's backpack slid off her shoulder onto the porch floor. The lantern oil sloshed inside the bottle in her hand. She did not move. She did not pull away. She let the old woman hold her. And after a long moment, she put her own arms around the woman's back. And she felt the old woman shake. Not crying, not yet, just shaking. The way a tree shakes after a long storm has finally passed. "Come in, child," the woman whispered. "Come in. I have soup." Junie went in. The kitchen was small. A wood stove, a round table covered with a blue checkered cloth, two place settings already laid out, two bowls, two spoons, two cloth napkins folded into triangles. The woman had set the table for two before she had known whether Junie would come back. Junie sat down. She did not take off the scarf. The scarf still had the hard drive in it. The woman ladled soup into a bowl. Steam rose chicken, potato, carrot, thyme. She set the bowl in front of Junie. She sat down across from her. She folded her hands on the table. She did not eat. She just watched. "Eat first," the woman said. "Talk after." "Mavis, eat, Junie. You won't be able to hear what I have to say on an empty stomach." Junie picked up the spoon. She ate. The soup was hot. The soup was the best thing she had ever tasted. She ate slowly. The woman watched her eat. The woman's eyes did not leave Junie's face. When Junie had finished the bowl, the woman ladled another. Junie ate that one too. When the second bowl was empty, Junie set the spoon down. She wiped her mouth with the cloth napkin. She folded the napkin. She put her hands flat on the table, and she looked across at the old woman. "Mavis." "Yes." "Who are you to me?" The woman closed her eyes. She took a long breath in. She took a long breath out. She opened her eyes. "My name is Mavis Eldridge. I was born Mavis Ballantyne. I am the daughter of Orphan Ballantyne, the man who carved that mountain in 1968, the man who built the wheel for you. My older sister had one child, a daughter. Her name was Saoirse. Saoirse had one child, a daughter. Her name was Juniper." The woman paused. "I am your great-aunt child, your grandmother's sister, your mother's aunt, the last living Ballantyne, besides you." Junie's hands stayed flat on the table. She thought she was going to be sick. She thought she was going to cry. She did neither. She just sat. She just looked at the old woman across from her. The woman did not look away. "Why didn't you tell me when I walked up to your porch this morning?" "Because if I had told you, you would not have walked to the wheel. You would have wanted to stay. And what was waiting for you at Ironwood was for you, not for me. Not yet. Why didn't you come for me before, when I was small?" The woman flinched. That landed. The woman took another breath. "Junie, I did come for you. I came for you every Wednesday afternoon for 5 years." Junie went still. "What did you say?" "I came for you Wednesdays, 3 to 5, the volunteer hours at Sage Hill. I came to that home in Tucson every Wednesday from the time you were 8 years old until you were 13. I came under another name. I dyed my hair black. I wore glasses I didn't need. I told the director I was a retired school teacher from Mesa. I learned to make my voice sound like someone else's voice." Junie's heart was hammering. She remembered. She remembered. Wednesday afternoons, the arts and crafts room, a woman with black hair and reading glasses, soft voice, steady hands, a woman who had taught her to knit. When Junie was 8, whose name had been? Whose name had been? She could not remember the name. She could see the woman. The woman had taught Junie to cast on, to purl, to turn a heel. Junie had spent 5 Wednesday afternoons a year learning from that woman. For 5 years, 25 Wednesdays, 125 hours. The woman had brought her own yarn. The woman had given Junie a small blue ball of yarn the last Wednesday they ever met. Junie had been 13. The woman had said, "This is for you. You're a real knitter now. I won't be coming back. The center is changing its volunteer program." Junie had not seen her again. Junie had not known the woman's last name. Junie had not known the woman at all. Until now. "Mrs. Pendleton," Junie whispered. "That's what they called you. I thought your name was Mrs. Pendleton." The woman smiled. It was a soft, sad smile. "I picked the name out of a book. Pendleton was a character in the book. I liked the sound of it. You came every Wednesday. For 5 years. You taught me to knit. I taught you everything I could teach you in 2 hours a week through a craft table with other children watching. You gave me the blue yarn. I made the yarn myself, from wool I dyed in this kitchen. You made this scarf with that wool. I made many scarves with that wool. I gave most of them away. I kept one. For the day you would come down my road, the day you would be old enough to take it." Junie put her face in her hands. She cried. Not the polite tears of a girl who has been carefully raised to manage her feelings. The big tears of a child who has just learned that she was loved. Every Wednesday. For 5 years. The woman got up, came around the table, knelt down beside her, put her arms around her, held her. "I am so sorry, baby," the woman whispered into Junie's hair. "I am so sorry. I had to give you up. I had to. If I had kept you, Drexler would have found you. He had men in 3 counties looking for a Ballantine child. He knew Saoirse had a baby. He knew the baby had survived. He didn't know where the baby was. I made him not know. I made him keep not knowing. For 13 years. Junie cried, the woman cried. They stayed there for a long time. When Junie finally lifted her head, the soup pot had stopped steaming. The lantern in the kitchen window had burned down 1/2 inch. She wiped her face on the blue scarf. She looked at the old woman. She did not know what to say, so she said the only true thing she could. "Thank you." The woman cupped her cheek. "Junie, you don't thank me. I didn't do you a kindness. I did you a hard thing. Because the harder thing was the only thing that kept you alive. You did me a kindness." "Maybe." "You did." The woman closed her eyes. "All right." "Mavis." "Yes." "Drexler is a senator now." "Yes." "He killed my mother." "I have always believed that. I have never been able to prove it. My grandfather Orphan built that mountain to stop him. Orphan built that mountain to outlast him." "Mavis." "Yes." There has to be a way to outlast him. Not just the mountain. Us. The woman looked at her for a long moment. Then the woman stood up. She went to the kitchen wall. She took down a small black phone, the kind with a curly cord, older than Junie. She dialed a number she did not have to look up. She waited. When the line picked up, she said only 6 words. "It's me. She came. Bring it." She hung up. She looked at Junie. "I am going to introduce you to a man. He has been waiting for you for almost 17 years. He does not know you are coming until I open that door. So when he sees you, he may need a moment." "Who is he?" "His name is Caspian Yost. He used to be a newspaper reporter for the Tucson Sentinel until he wrote an article in 2008 about a woman who died on State Route 186. After he wrote it, his editor told him the story was not worth following. He kept following it. They fired him. He has spent almost 17 years in a back room on Stone Avenue, fixing old typewriters, waiting for someone to bring him the evidence he needed." Junie pulled the scarf away from her collarbone. The hard drive fell into her palm. She looked at it. She looked at the woman. "Mavis, my grandfather labeled this drive. He wrote my name on it. He set it up to transmit, to send everything to recipients he encoded. He waited for me to come and plug it in. The system at the wheel asked me to plug it in. I almost did." "Why didn't you?" "Because Sheriff Tranner was at the door. I ran." The woman nodded slowly. Then we plug it in when the time is right, not before. Caspian needs to know what you have. Caspian needs to be ready so that when you transmit, he is on the receiving end, not just whoever else Oren set up. Junie thought about that. It made sense. She put the hard drive back inside the scarf. She zipped her backpack. She stood up. The woman took her coat off a hook by the door, a long brown wool coat, worn at the elbows, the kind of coat an old woman wears when she has not bought a new coat in 20 years and does not intend to. Where do we meet him? Junie asked. Halfway outside town. He won't come here. He's been careful for almost 17 years. He doesn't stop being careful tonight. How do we get there? Did you call a cab? The woman smiled. She opened a cabinet beside the kitchen door. She pulled out a set of keys. I have a truck, child. I am old. I am not dead. Junie almost laughed. Almost. The truck was a 1978 Ford. Tan paint, faded to the color of an old coffee stain, a cracked dashboard, a heater that smelled like dust. The woman drove like a woman who knew every curve of the road by feel. Junie sat in the passenger seat with the backpack between her feet. The truck headlights cut two thin yellow tunnels through the desert dark. The stars were out. So many stars. Junie had never seen this many stars. She watched them through the windshield. The woman drove without speaking for 10 miles. Then she said very quietly, Your mother used to count stars from this truck. When she was small, she would sit where you are sitting now, with her knees up, with her chin on her knees. She would count to 100, then she would start again. Junie put her hand on the dashboard. She did not say anything. Some moments did not need to be answered. They met Caspian Yost at a closed gas station on the outskirts of Wilcox, just the three of them. The woman pulled the truck around behind the station so the headlights would not be seen from the road. She killed the engine. A man was already there, standing beside an old white sedan, hands in his coat pockets, late 60s, white hair, combed back, thin, wire-frame glasses, a face that had once been handsome and now was mostly tired. He stepped forward as Junie climbed out of the truck. He stopped 6 feet from her. He looked at her face. His mouth opened. His mouth closed. He took a step back, like he had been hit. Then he came forward again. He took off his glasses. He wiped them with a corner of his shirt. He put them back on. He looked at her. You are her daughter, he said. Yes. You have her face. So I'm told. He did not smile, but something in his eyes did. My name is Caspian Yost. I wrote one article about your mother in 2008. I have spent almost 17 years trying to write the second one. I have what you need to write it. She took the hard drive out of the scarf. She held it up. Caspian looked at it. His breath caught. How big? I don't know. 23,000 records, pressure readings, flow data, permit copies, letters, photographs. My grandfather built it, set it to transmit when I plugged it into the system at the wheel. How long do we have? They came to the wheel today. They took the front of house records. They didn't find the drive. They will be looking for me by morning. Caspian nodded slowly. He looked at the woman. He looked at Junie. He took a breath. I have been waiting for one of two things, he said, for almost 17 years, either to die or for someone to come and tell me my notes were not wasted. Tonight I learned which one came first. The woman put her hand on his arm for one moment. Then she let go. Caspian, we need a plan. By dawn. He nodded. Come to my shop. We can talk there. There's a back room. The phones are clean. I sweep them every month. He paused. And Junie. Yes. Your mother, the day she filed that lawsuit, she came to my apartment afterwards. She was 6 months pregnant. She sat at my kitchen table. She told me, if anything happens to me, promise me you'll keep looking. Promise me you won't let it die with me. I made that promise. I have been keeping it for almost 17 years. Junie's eyes filled. What did she say about me? Caspian smiled, the first smile she had seen on his face. She said, I'm going to name her Juniper, because junipers grow in places nothing else can, because my grandfather had a juniper tree by the back door of his cabin, because the word sounds like a small bird. She said, if she comes after me, I will love her enough for 2 lifetimes in the time we have. Junie sat down on the gravel, right there, in the closed gas station lot, under the stars. She put her hands over her face. The woman came and knelt beside her. Caspian crouched on her other side. 3 of them, in the dirt, in the dark, in the middle of a county where a state senator owned everything that wasn't bolted down. They were quiet together for a long time. Then Junie wiped her face. She stood up. She held the hard drive in her hand. She looked at Caspian. Let's go to your shop. Yes. And Caspian. Yes. What's the second name on your list of recipients, besides you? Caspian looked at her. I don't know, he said. Your grandfather never told me. He told me I would find out the night the drive transmitted. Then we find out tonight. They drove in 2 vehicles into Wilcox. The old truck, Caspian's old sedan. They parked behind a row of small storefronts on Stone Avenue. Caspian led them through a back door, down a narrow hallway smelling of typewriter oil and old paper, into a room with a low ceiling, a workbench against one wall, tools laid out in careful order, 6 typewriters in various states of repair, a small green-shaded lamp burning over the workbench, a back wall covered in cork. The cork wall was covered with newspaper clippings, photographs, sticky notes, pieces of yarn pinned between them, connecting one thing to another, a wall that had been added to for almost 17 years. In the center of the wall at eye level was a single photograph. Saoirse Ballantyne, 26, standing in front of a courthouse in Tucson, holding a manila folder, 6 months pregnant, looking straight at the camera. Junie walked up to the wall. She stood in front of her mother. For the first time in her life, she put her hand against the photograph. The photograph was warm from the lamp. She closed her eyes. She stood like that for a full minute. When she opened her eyes, the woman was beside her. Caspian was at the workbench, setting up an old desktop computer that he wheeled out from under the bench on a small cart. The kind of computer that had not been new in 15 years. The kind a man uses when he does not want to be tracked. He plugged it in. He waited for it to boot. Junie sat down on the small folding chair he set out for her. The woman took the other chair. They were quiet while the computer woke up. Then, a sound. Not from the computer, from Junie's backpack. A soft electronic chime, like a bell, from far away. Junie went still. She unzipped the backpack. She reached inside. She pulled out a small radio device. She had not seen it before. She had not known it was in there. The woman leaned forward. Where did that come from? I don't know. I didn't put it in my bag. Then he did. Orphan, he left it in the records room, or in the entrance. You picked it up without realizing. The chime sounded again. The device had a small screen. The screen was glowing. A line of text appeared. Incoming transmission. Sundial wheel system. Authorized caller request live link. A line below it. Authorized caller. Lachlan Drexler. Junie's heart stopped. The woman went white. Caspian stood up from the computer. Junie looked at the device. She did not know how the senator was reaching her. She did not know how he had reached the wheel. But the wheel had a 2-way link. Orphan had built it. Orphan had built it for himself. And someone had figured out in almost 17 years how to use it. The chime sounded a third time. Accept transmission. Yes, no. The woman whispered, don't. Caspian whispered, "Let him talk. We can learn from him. Let him reveal what he knows about you, about what he wants. Don't say much. Let him do the talking." Junie looked at the woman beside her. Junie looked at the journalist who had waited almost 17 years. Junie looked down at her own hand. She pressed yes. The voice that came out of the small speaker was older than she had imagined. Smoother, quieter. The voice of a man in his late 60s who had spent his whole life learning to make difficult things sound simple. "Junie?" She did not answer. "Junie, my name is Lachlan Drexler. I think you know who I am." She did not answer. "You are not in any trouble. I want you to hear me say that first. You are not in any trouble with me. You have stumbled into something that started long before you were born. None of this is your fault. None of it." She did not answer. "Junie, I am prepared to be very generous. I will pay you $3 million. Cash, set up as a trust so the IRS does not eat it. Enough to buy a house, to go to whatever college you want, to live a quiet life, anywhere on earth. In exchange, you walk away. From the mountain, from the records, from the woman who is sitting beside you tonight." Junie's hand went tight around the small device. He knew about the woman. He knew about the cabin. He had known all along. His voice continued. "Junie, I am not a bad man. I am a man who has done difficult things for a long time, and I have done them so long that I have stopped knowing how to tell the difference between what is mine and what isn't. That is what happens to men in offices. Over decades, you manage something long enough, you forget who it ever belonged to. But I am not without compassion. I do not want a third Valentine to die. I would like very much for you to live. So I am offering you life." She did not answer. His voice changed, just slightly, a different kind of patience now. "I will give you 1 hour to consider. I am sending a small piece of information to your device to help you make your decision." The line went dead. Junie stared at the device. A picture appeared on the screen. It took her a moment to understand what she was looking at. A woman, older, white hair, tied to a wooden chair. A blue scarf had been pulled tight across her mouth and tied at the back of her head. A blue scarf, the same blue, the same yarn, the same hand that had made it. Junie looked at the picture. She looked at the woman beside her. The woman was sitting next to her. The woman was right here. But the woman in the picture, her eyes the same, her white hair the same, her hands the same. The woman in the picture was Mavis. The picture had been taken minutes ago. Junie's head snapped up. She looked at the woman beside her. She looked at her again. Hard. The woman beside her was wearing the same wool coat, same braid, same wireframe glasses. The face was different. A little, just a little. Younger by maybe 10 years. The eyes were too steady, too dry. The woman beside her had not cried in the kitchen. She had cried. But her hands had not shaken. But the hug had been right, hadn't it? But. Junie's heart was a hammer in her chest. The phone chimed again. A new line of text on the screen. "The woman with you is not your aunt. The woman in this picture is. You have 1 hour to bring the hard drive to the Drexler farm. Alone. No police, no press. Or I will bury her next to your mother." The device went black. The room was very quiet. The woman who was not Mavis looked at Junie. Her face had not changed. Her eyes were calm. She put one hand inside her wool coat. She did not take it out. She just rested it there. Caspian behind them at the workbench, very slowly, without sudden movement, reached for a brass letter opener on the bench, the kind with a wooden handle, the kind a man keeps for opening mail. Junie's lips parted. Her voice came out as a whisper. "Who are you?" The woman who was not Mavis smiled. The smile did not reach her eyes. I'm someone he sent a long time ago to watch the porch in case anyone ever came. How long? 11 years. Junie thought she might pass out. The woman tilted her head. The real Mavis took care of you on Wednesdays at Sage Hill. That part was true. I gave it to you because I knew you needed to hear something true to bring you back to the cabin tonight. I am sorry, honey, I really am. I have always thought he should leave you alone, but that is not my decision to make. Junie's hand closed around the hard drive and the blue scarf. Where is she? The real Mavis. Drexler's farm, tied up, waiting for you, alive for another hour. Junie stood up. She felt very calm. She did not feel calm. She felt nothing. She felt everything. She felt the room narrow to the size of a small bright point. And inside that point was a single fact. The real Mavis was alive. For another hour. The woman in the chair was watching her with the patient eyes of a person who had done this work for a very long time and had stopped finding it personal. Caspian's hand was still on the letter opener. He had not moved it. He had not lifted it. He was waiting for Junie. Junie reached up, slowly, carefully. She unwrapped the blue scarf from around her neck. She held it in both hands. She looked at the woman. The scarf, Junie said. The one Mavis gave me, on the porch, this morning. Tell me how she made it. The woman blinked, just once, just for half a second. The woman did not answer. Junie nodded. She looked at Caspian. Caspian's hand tightened on the letter opener. Outside on Stone Avenue, a slow vehicle passed. The clock on Caspian's workbench ticked once, then twice, then a third time. Junie took a step back, and the woman in the chair took her hand out of her coat, and in her hand was something small and black. And it was not a letter opener. The thing in the woman's hand was a small black pistol. It was already up. Junie saw it. She did not move. She could not move. Her body had become a thing that belonged to someone else. The woman did not stand. She did not need to. 6 feet of space, a small handgun, a girl who had never been close to one before. Sit down, honey, the woman said. We are going to wait 1 hour, together, and then you are going to give me the drive, and I am going to take you to the farm, and he will see your face, and then he will let your aunt go. Junie did not sit down. Junie was thinking, faster than she had ever thought, faster than her body could keep up with, because the woman had said, he will let your aunt go. Because a man who had killed Saoirse almost 18 years ago, a man who had killed her on a highway in January, a man who had spent almost 17 years making sure that no one ever knew, a man like that did not let people go. A man like that closed loose ends. Mavis was a loose end. Junie was a loose end. The hard drive was the biggest loose end of all. The woman would not be driving her to a farm tonight. The woman would be driving her to a hole in the ground. Junie's mind did not panic. Her mind got cold. Her mind said, the clock is ticking. He gave you 1 hour. You do not need to give him an hour. You need to give him a different hour entirely. She looked at Caspian. Caspian had not moved, but his eyes had. Caspian's eyes were on the workbench, on the green-shaded lamp, on the cord that ran from the lamp to the wall outlet. Junie understood, without a word, the way you understand a man who has waited almost 17 years for this moment. She nodded, just once, a movement so small the woman did not see it. Junie sat down. She held the scarf in her lap. She let her shoulders fall, the way a girl's shoulders fall when she has decided to give up. The woman watched her. The woman's gun lowered, just slightly, just an inch. That inch was enough. Caspian moved. He moved faster than a man his age should have been able to move. He yanked the lamp cord from the wall. The room went dark. Not all the way. The street light outside the back door threw a thin yellow line across the floor, but enough dark for a moment. Junie threw the scarf. She threw it at the woman's face. She did not aim at the gun. You do not aim at the gun. You aim at the eyes. The scarf hit the woman's face. The woman flinched. The gun discharged. The shot went into the ceiling. Plaster came down. Junie was already on her feet. She grabbed Caspian's wrist. She pulled him toward the back door. He came. They crashed through the door, into the alley, into the night, into the cold smell of desert and old gasoline. Behind them, the woman was getting to her feet. Behind them, the woman was shouting. Behind them, a phone was being dialed. Junie ran. Caspian ran. The truck was where the woman had parked it. The truck Junie had ridden in. The truck whose passenger door Junie had opened that night, thinking the woman beside her was her great-aunt. The keys were in Junie's pocket, because the woman had handed them to her in the cabin, telling her, "You drive. Child, I'm tired tonight." Junie unlocked the truck. Caspian got in the passenger side. Junie got behind the wheel. She had never driven a vehicle in her life. She had never had a chance. The truck was a manual transmission. Of course it was. She pumped the clutch. She turned the key. The engine coughed. The engine caught. She found first gear by feel. She let out the clutch too fast. The truck lurched, stalled. She turned the key again. She tried again. Behind them, the back door of Caspian's shop banged open. The woman came out into the alley. Junie got the truck moving. She got it into second gear. She got it into third. The truck shot out the end of the alley, onto Stone Avenue, past the closed storefronts, past the single blinking yellow light at the only intersection in Wilcox. Caspian gripped the dashboard with both hands. "Left," he said. Junie went left. "Right." She went right. "Now straight, as fast as this thing will go." The truck was a 1978 Ford. It went as fast as a 1978 Ford goes. 60, 65, 70. The town fell away behind them. The desert opened ahead. "Where?" Junie said. Her voice sounded like a stranger's voice. "Where are we going?" "Back to the wheel." "What?" "Back to the wheel, Junie. The drive needs to be plugged into that console. The transmission needs to happen. Now. Tonight. Before he closes any more loose ends. There is no other way to keep Mavis alive. He has her. Yes. If I transmit, he kills her. Junie, he kills her either way. No. Yes. No. Junie, listen to me. I have been watching this man for almost 17 years. I know how he closes loose ends. If we go to that farm, he kills all three of you. If we transmit the drive, the world sees him. And the moment the world sees him, he cannot afford to be holding a kidnapped woman. He has to release her to save himself. We do not save Mavis by giving him what he wants. We save Mavis by taking from him the one thing he wants more than her, his reputation. Junie did not answer. She drove. The headlights cut through the dark. The road climbed into the foothills. She thought. She thought. She thought. A part of her was screaming. A part of her was saying, "You are 17 years old. You have never driven. You are going 80 miles an hour up a dirt road toward a mountain where the sheriff is probably still standing. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. You cannot do this." A part of her was saying, "Get to the wheel." The second part was louder. She drove. Caspian was on his phone, his own phone, not the device Drexler had used, an old flip phone with a chipped cover. He was calling someone. He talked low and fast. Junie heard fragments. She came. She came tonight. We have it. We need backup. We need it now. Yes. To the wheel, 40 minutes. He closed the phone. He looked at her. "Junie, who did you call?" "A friend. Several friends. Reporters I have known for 30 years. across 4 states. They are getting in their cars now. They will not arrive until after dawn. We need to hold the mountain until they get there. Hold the mountain? Yes. From who? From whoever Drexler sends next. Tranter is still there. He had 3 deputies. There may be more by now. There is the man in the suit from the SUV. There will be others. Caspian, I cannot fight the Cochise County Sheriff's Department. You don't have to fight them. You have to outlast them. The trail to the wheel. Junie did not take the main approach. She knew now in her bones that the main approach was watched. She drove past the turnoff. 2 miles past. Then she pulled the truck off the road, into a wash, into a stand of mesquite that would hide it from anyone who did not know to look. She turned off the engine. She turned off the lights. She and Caspian got out. They walked. Up a back slope, through scrub, past Pale Rock, the way she had come down, hours ago, out the back tunnel. The night was cold. She did not have the scarf anymore. The scarf was on the floor of Caspian's shop. She walked with her arms wrapped around herself. Caspian walked behind her, quiet, sure-footed. A man who had walked many miles in the dark over many years. The mountain rose ahead, the backside, the side no one watched. She found the small opening in the brush. She found the small wooden door behind it. She pulled the door open. They crawled, through 40 feet of tunnel, then 60, then more. They came out in the entrance room. The front door of the entrance room, the big stone door, was open, wide open, pried open with bolt cutters and a winch. The sheriff's men had been here. Had they left? She did not know. She moved slowly through the entrance room. The bookshelves had been pulled out, books on the floor, the wooden table tipped on its side, the bed mattress slashed open. They had searched hard. She walked through the passage to the machine room, Caspian behind her. She held her breath. The machine room was empty of people. The console was still on. The screen still glowed. The hum of the machine still filled the cavern. The records room, through the small low passage in the back. She could see by the lantern light still burning there that it had been emptied. The filing cabinets gaping, the document trays gone, the boxes from the shelves gone. They had taken everything they could find. They had not found the back tunnel. They had not found the back door. They had not found Junie. They had not found the drive. She walked up to the console. She stood in front of the screen. She unwrapped the hard drive from where she had tucked it inside her shirt. She looked at Caspian. Are you ready? For what comes next? Yes. For what may not come back. Junie, I have been ready for that since 2008. She slid the hard drive into the input slot on the side of the console. The screen changed. External drive detected. Authenticating. A pause. Authentication confirmed. Ballantine bloodline verified. Archive contents. 23,847 individual records. Date range. 1971 through 2008. Transmission protocol active. Recipient list encoded. Initiating transmission. The progress bar appeared. 0%. 1%. 2. Slow. Because the system was old. Because the drive was vast. Because the lines Orphan had run through the mountain were copper and time-tested and unhurried. Junie sat down on the concrete floor in front of the console. Caspian sat down beside her. They watched the progress bar move. The mountain hummed around them. Far below, water moved through channels that had been dry for over a decade. The bar reached 8%, and the sound of a vehicle outside. The cameras came on. 3 vehicles again. 2 of them she recognized. The sheriff's cruiser, the black SUV. The third was new. A long, dark sedan. The kind of car a senator rides in. Junie's hand closed around Caspian's arm. Caspian said only one word. Hold. The bar reached 12%. A knock at the front door. Not the sheriff this time. A different voice. Older, smoother, quieter. The voice from the small device in Caspian's shop. Junie, it's Lachlan. She did not answer. Junie, I am alone at this door. The others are at the bottom of the trail. I have come up myself because I think we have things to say to each other that should not be said through other people. She looked at Caspian. He shook his head. She did not answer. A long pause. Then, Junie, I am going to come in. I will leave the door open behind me so that any threat against me is also a threat against the public record of my body in your mountain. I am 67 years old. I am unarmed. I am asking you to let me in so that we can finish this without anyone else dying. She did not answer. Footsteps, slow coming through the open stone door, through the entrance room, down the passage, toward the machine room. She stood up. She turned to face the passage. Caspian stood beside her. She did not see his hand reach into his coat, but she knew it had. Lachlan Drexler stepped into the machine room. He was thinner than she had imagined. He was older. He had white hair, cut neatly, a black wool coat, dark slacks, no tie, no jewelry, the unarmed clothing of a man who wants to be believed. He stopped at the edge of the platform. He looked at the console. He looked at the progress bar. He saw the number. 14%. His face did not change. But something in him changed. It happened in his shoulders. The way a man's shoulders go when a thing he has built over 40 years has just begun to come apart. He looked at Junie. He looked at her face for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. You have her face. So I'm told. I want you to know. I never wanted to meet you. In this way. Or in any way. I would have given my whole estate for this meeting not to happen tonight. That would have been generous. It would have been honest. He took a step closer. Caspian shifted. Drexler stopped. He held up his empty hands. I have a question to ask you, Junie. Before we finish this, may I ask it? She did not answer. He took her silence as permission. Where is the woman who was with you tonight? The one I sent. I left her in a back room on Stone Avenue. Alive. Last I checked. Good. Why is that good? Because I do not want any more dead women in this. Not tonight, not at the end. He paused. Now I am going to ask you something else, and I would like you to think about it before you answer. Go ahead. Junie, if I told you the truth about what happened on State Route 186 on a Tuesday night in January of 2008, would you stop the transmission? Junie's blood went cold. She did not turn around. The progress bar behind her was at 16%. Are you saying you would tell me? I am saying I would tell you the whole truth if you would stop the transmission right now and give me the drive. I would tell you what happened to your mother, word for word. And then what? Then I would leave this mountain. I would not come back. You would have your aunt. You would have your truth. You would have your life. I would have my retirement, quietly, in another state. And the valley, the farms, the wells. The valley would continue to receive water under the existing distribution arrangement, the stolen arrangement, the legal arrangement, the arrangement you wrote into law yourself. He was quiet for a long moment. Yes, that's not a trade I can make. Junie, it's not even close. Junie, you will never know what happened to your mother. If you don't take this offer, I am the only living person who knows the truth. I will take it to my grave, which will be a long time from now. You will have your transmission. You will have the courts, the trials, the newspapers. But you will go home tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night for the rest of your life, not knowing how she died, or who was driving the other car, or who paid him, or what her last words were, because I am the only person who heard them. Junie thought she might fall. She did not fall. She thought she might scream. She did not scream. She thought. Because here is what she thought. She thought, he is offering me a thing I have wanted for almost 17 years. He is offering me my mother's last words. She thought, he is offering me peace. She thought, the peace he is offering is the peace of a small, private grief held alone in a quiet room. She thought, there are 40,000 people in this valley. Most of them I will never meet. Most of them will never know my name. She thought, they drink water, she thought. Their children drink water, she thought. He is offering me a peace that costs them their water. She thought, my mother died for those people. She thought, Saoirse Ballantyne, 26, 6 months pregnant, with me in her body, walked into a courtroom for those people. She did not know them either. She did it anyway. She thought, if I take his trade, I take her gift, and I throw it away. She lifted her head. She looked at Lachlan Drexler in the eye. She said, no. He closed his eyes for one long moment, then he opened them. All right. All right, what? I underestimated you. Yes. Like your grandfather. He was patient. So am I. Yes. Behind her, the bar reached 22%. Drexler did not move. He did not signal anyone. He did not pull out a phone. He looked at the progress bar. He looked at Junie. He looked at Caspian. He looked at the floor. And then he did something Junie did not expect. He sat down on the concrete, slowly. The way an old man sits when his knees have decided that standing is no longer worth what it costs. He put his hands on his knees. He looked up at the console, and he said, almost to himself, in 1989, I signed a permit I should not have signed. It diverted 300 acre-feet of water from the valley into a private holding I had a quiet interest in. 300 acre-feet, not a great amount, a drop in a bucket, the bucket being the entire western United States. I thought no one would notice. No one did. I signed another permit the following year, and another the year after that. By 1995, I had stopped thinking of them as theft. I had started thinking of them as management. By 2005, I had stopped thinking of them at all. They were just paperwork. They were just the way things were. He paused. Evil does not begin with a roar. It begins with a whisper, and with the silence of the people who hear the whisper and decide not to speak. He did not look up. Your grandfather spoke. Your mother spoke. They were not heard. So they built a mountain that would speak for them when the right person came to it. He looked at her. That person is you. Yes. He nodded. You are 17 years old. Did you know that? I know. You will be 18 in 3 days. In 2 days now. It's after midnight. He almost smiled. Happy birthday. Not yet. He looked at the screen. 31%. How long does this take? He said. I don't know. Long enough that I have time to make a phone call. Probably. He took a phone out of his coat pocket. Junie tensed. Caspian raised his hand inside his coat. Drexler held up his other hand. I am calling my driver, who is sitting at the bottom of your trail with your great aunt in the back seat of the car. I am going to tell him to take her to the hospital in Wilcox, and then to drive himself to the sheriff's station in Bisbee, and to wait there for federal officers. Junie's heart stopped. He will do that. He has worked for me for 21 years. He is a good man. He has been waiting for a reason to stop. I am giving him one tonight. He dialed. He spoke. He spoke briefly, quietly, without ceremony. He hung up. He looked at Junie. Mavis is being driven to the hospital now. She is alive. She is bruised. She is very angry. She will not be happy when she finds out the woman in your truck tonight was not her, but she will be alive to find out. Junie sat down on the floor. She could not stand anymore. She sat down across from him. The two of them sat cross-legged on the concrete, like two people who had decided to play a long game on a hot afternoon. The progress bar moved behind her. Caspian stayed standing, his hand still inside his coat, watching the passage, watching the screen. After a while, Drexler said, "Your mother." On the road that night, she said three things. I will tell you them now, without your consent, because I do not want to die with them. Junie's eyes filled. She did not stop him. She said, "Tell him I forgive him, even though I do not." She said, "Tell my child I am sorry I am not coming home." She said, "Tell my father that the mountain was a good idea." He paused, and then she died in the back of a state trooper's car on the side of Route 186, with her hand around my wrist, holding it like she did not want to let go of anyone living, even me, even the man who had paid for what had happened to her car. Junie was crying now, quietly. The way you cry when you have been holding something for a long time and you have finally been allowed to set it down. Drexler did not look at her. He looked at the screen. He let her cry. He let her have that moment, without watching it, which was, in its small way, the only kindness he had ever shown her. The bar reached 61%, then 70, then 78. Caspian, by the passage, raised his head suddenly. "Tranter's coming up," he said quietly. "I can hear the deputy talking on a radio at the bottom of the trail." Drexler looked at Caspian. "Sit down, son. He won't come in." "You're sure of that?" "I'm sure of that." He looked at the screen. 83%. He looked at the platform behind the console. There was a lever on the far left side of the console, a lever Junie had read about in Oren's notebook. The mountain lock. Permanent. Irreversible. The thing that once pulled sealed the entire system away from any human hand forever. Drexler looked at it. He looked at Junie. "You're going to pull that, aren't you?" "Yes." "When the transmission finishes?" "Yes." "After tonight, no one will be able to run the system. Not me, not the cooperative, not even you. The water will just find its own level, forever." "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Your grandfather and I, we disagreed about many things, about whether water belongs to a place or to the people on it, about whether public office is a gift or a wage, about whether a man can wash a small theft for 40 years until it stops looking like theft." He paused. "We disagreed, but I always understood him. He always understood me. We were two men who saw the same valley and made two different choices about what to do with it. And you saw your choice as management, and he saw his as protection." Yes, he was right. "You only think that now because of the bar on that screen." "Yes, that is exactly when most men come to most of their right opinions. Too late." Junie wiped her face on the sleeve of her shirt. "Is there anything else you want to say before it finishes?" He looked at her. "Junie." "Yes." "You are 18 years old in 2 days. You have lost your mother. You have lost a grandfather you never met. You have nearly lost your aunt. You have crossed a desert. You have entered a mountain. You have heard from me everything I had to give you. You are going to walk out of this room, and the world will know who I am, and the world will know who you are. The press will come. The lawyers will come. The senators will come. People will write books. They will make a film. There will be a woman with a kind face on a morning television show who will ask you about how you feel. What is your advice?" "My advice?" "Yes, from a man who has lived a long time to a girl who has just begun." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Do not let them turn you into a story. You are a person. You are a person who likes butter cookies and who knits with blue yarn and who has a cat named Biscuit. Stay her. Be her. Underneath the noise. Be Juniper." Junie's face crumpled. She nodded. The bar reached 97%, 98, 99, 100. A small chime from the console. Transmission complete. 23,847 records delivered. 47 recipients confirmed. The screen changed. A list of the recipients began to scroll. Newspapers. The Tucson Sentinel. The Arizona Republic. The New York Times. The Washington Post. The Los Angeles Times. 43 more. The FBI Phoenix Field Office. The Federal Bureau of Reclamation. The United States Attorney for the District of Arizona. And one name, at the very bottom, Caspian Yost, personal email. Caspian made a small sound, a sound that was not quite a laugh, a sound that was not quite a sob. He kept me on the list, Caspian whispered. Orrin kept me on the list. After all these years. Junie looked at the lever. She stood up. She walked to the left end of the console. She lifted the small metal cap that protected the lever from accidental engagement. She put her hand on the lever. She looked at Lachlan Drexler. He looked back at her. He nodded once. She pulled the lever down. The mountain answered. Not with thunder, with weight. Something settled, something deep. Far below the concrete floor, ancient mechanisms turned over once. Then again. Then locked. Stone gates somewhere in the bedrock slid into permanent position. The pipes in the walls and ceiling carried a brief pressure surge. The whole system found its true center, like a great wheel balancing itself. The indicator lights on the console went amber. Then they went out, one by one, down the long row, steady, unhurried. The screen flickered. A final line of text appeared. Keeper interface disabled. System autonomous. The water now belongs to the valley itself. The screen went dark. The room was not silent. The machine still hummed. The water still moved. But the controls were gone. The mountain had swallowed its own hand back into itself and sealed it there. Lachlan Drexler stood up, slowly, like an old man who had decided that standing was after all worth what it cost. He buttoned his coat. He looked at Junie. He looked at Caspian. He walked toward the passage. At the entrance to the passage, he stopped. He turned back. There will be men outside. They will arrest me. They will arrest Tranner. They will arrest the woman in your back room on Stone Avenue. They will arrest a great many people I have known for a long time. He paused. Tell your aunt, when she wakes up, that I am sorry about almost 18 years ago, about 13 years ago, about tonight. I will tell her myself, from inside whatever cell they put me in. But I would like you to tell her first. Junie nodded. He turned. He walked down the long passage. She heard his footsteps. She heard the front door of the entrance room. She heard him step out into the cool morning. She heard the soft sound of metal on metal, a man handing himself over. A man for whom standing was finally not worth what it cost. A man putting down what he had carried for 40 years. The sun came up at 5:53. Junie was sitting on the porch of Mavis Eldridge's cabin, a blanket around her shoulders, a mug in her hand, mint tea, honey at the bottom. The same mug a woman had given her the morning before. Mavis was sitting beside her in the wooden chair. There was a bruise on Mavis's cheek. Mavis had been examined at the hospital in Wilcox, treated for dehydration, released at 4 a.m. Caspian had driven them both back to the cabin. The real Mavis. Mavis Ballantyne Eldridge. White hair pulled back in a loose braid. Hands that had worked all their lives. Eyes that were bright with sleeplessness and something else. She had not let go of Junie's hand for almost 2 hours. Junie did not mind. The east lit up. The mountains turned the color of bread crust. The desert valley below them was a long, quiet bowl of light. Birds began. Somewhere far away, a coyote was finishing its last hunt of the night. Mavis spoke first. Junie. Yes. I was supposed to be the one to tell you everything. Last night, at my kitchen table, over soup, I rehearsed the words for 13 years. I know. The woman who took my place, she was the wife of a man who used to work for Drexler. She knew enough about me to pretend. She had watched the cabin for years. I always knew. I always knew. Junie squeezed her hand. You don't have to explain. I have to explain. All right. She came at 4 o'clock yesterday, right after you left. She had a small needle. She put it in my arm. She put me in her own truck. She locked me in a storage shed at the back of Drexler's farm. She put on my clothes. She put on my coat. She braided her hair like mine. She drove my truck back here to wait for you. She told me you came to Sage Hill on Wednesdays. She knew that. Drexler had known about my Wednesdays for years. He never moved against me because moving against me would have been moving on the whole story. He needed me to lead him to you. He was patient. He was always patient. Until I came home. Until you came home. Mavis. Yes. I have a question. Anything. Junie set the mug down on the porch boards. You came to Sage Hill on Wednesdays. For 5 years. Yes. You were Mrs. Pendleton. Yes. You gave me the blue yarn. I gave you the blue yarn. Why did you give it to me on the last Wednesday, if you knew you would not see me again? Mavis was quiet for a long time. Then she said, because I knew that one day you would be standing somewhere far from me, cold, alone, trying to make a decision. And I wanted you to have something blue in your hand, something I had made, something that meant, someone made this for you. Someone is waiting, even if you cannot see her. Junie's eyes filled. It worked. Did it? In the kitchen of Caspian's shop, when I knew the woman across from me was not you, the thing that gave it away was the scarf. She did not know how you made it. Good. Yes. Junie. Yes. Will you stay with me? Here, after all this is done, after the reporters and the lawyers and the federal agents are gone, after the books and the films and the morning television show. You heard about the morning television show. Caspian told me on the drive back. Drexler told you about all the noise that is coming. He told me to stay myself underneath the noise. He was right about that. He was right about almost nothing in his life, but he was right about that. I will stay with you, Mavis. You don't have to decide today. I don't have to. I am. Then you will. Yes. The sun cleared the eastern ridge. The whole world went gold. A magpie landed on the porch rail, black and white, quick eyes. It looked at them. It cocked its head. It flew off again. Mavis squeezed Junie's hand. Junie. Yes. Tomorrow is your birthday. Yes. I have been waiting 18 years to make you a cake. What kind? Buttermilk with brown sugar frosting. Your mother liked it best. She used to ask for it every year, from the time she was 4 until the year she got too old to ask out loud. Then that's the one. Yes. They sat in silence for a while. The desert breathed. A small herd of mule deer moved across the wash below the cabin. Slow, unhurried, drinking from a stream that had not flowed in 15 years. The stream was flowing now. It had been flowing since yesterday afternoon, since the moment a girl had pulled a lever in a room inside a mountain. The valley was finding its own level, the way Orphan had always known it would. 3 months later, the trial began. Junie did not attend. Caspian attended on her behalf. He sent her reports each evening. Brown envelopes, always typed, always brief. Lachlan Drexler pled guilty to 41 counts. He was sentenced to 31 years. He would die in prison. Hollis Tranter cooperated with federal investigators. He gave them everything, the names of every deputy who had taken money, The names of every official who had looked the other way, the names of 2 state judges, the name of 1 congressman. Tranter's sentence was reduced to 12 years. Wendell Brigham was charged with 1 count of aiding and abetting a kidnapping conspiracy. He pled guilty. He was sentenced to 4 years. Junie wrote him a letter the week he went in. The letter said, "Mr. Brigham, you broke a promise and then spent 13 years paying it back. The phone number you gave me saved my life. I will not forget that. I hope you are well. I hope your time goes quickly. Sincerely, Juniper." She did not sign it Ballantyne. She did not sign it Holloway. She signed it Juniper. Because some names are not yours yet. Because some names are yours all the way through. Some names are still being earned. The cabin in the desert. A year passed. Junie turned 19. She turned 20. She did not go to college. She got her diploma by mail in 3 months. A program for adults who had finished high school late. She took a job 3 afternoons a week at the small library in Wilcox. Mavis drove her there in the truck. Junie taught children how to read. She had not known she would be good at this. She was good at this. Caspian Yost wrote a book. It was called The Mountain That Spoke. It sold many copies. He sent her the royalties he had earned from chapters in which she appeared. She put the money into a savings account. She did not buy anything with it. The royalties grew. She did not need them. She had soup. She had Mavis. She had a cat named Biscuit who had come by airplane crate from Sage Hill, sent by a kind staff member who had remembered which girl had loved which cat. Biscuit had aged. Biscuit slept by the wood stove. Mavis fed him pieces of chicken under the table. In the spring of Junie's 21st year, she went back to the mountain. Just once. Alone. She walked the back way. She crawled through the small tunnel. She came out in the entrance room. The room was mostly empty now. The federal investigators had taken what evidence remained. The bookshelves had been put back up. Half the books were still on them. Half had been removed for the trial and never returned. She walked through the passage, through the machine room. She stood in front of the dark console. The screen had not lit in 3 years. She put her hand on the metal nameplate. She traced the letters with her finger. For those who come after the dust. She thought about her grandfather. She thought about the years he had spent in this room. She thought about how even now, with the keeper interface gone, the system still ran. The water still moved. The valley still drank. He had built a thing that needed no keeper, because he had finally trusted that something else would keep it. The land, the water, the slow, steady pull of physics. She put her cheek against the metal of the console. She said, "Hello, Granddad, it's me." The mountain answered with the small, steady hum that had not stopped in 3 years. She stayed for a while. She walked out the back way. She did not lock anything behind her, because there was nothing left to lock, because the mountain had locked itself years later. Junie would be standing on a porch in the late afternoon, hands floured from making bread. A woman of 40, a young girl would come up her path, carrying a small leather-bound notebook. The girl would have eyes that Junie would recognize. Not her own eyes, but the eyes of a great aunt who had taught her to knit. A great niece. The next one, Junie would meet her at the bottom of the steps. She would not ask any questions yet. She would just take her by the hand. She would lead her inside. She would say, "Sit down, child. Get out of that sun. I have soup." She would set the table for 2. Because this is what is passed down, not blood. Blood is the first part. What is passed down is the cup of mint tea in the warm yellow kitchen, the folded napkin, the buttered cookie, the scarf the color of a desert sky after sundown, the small, steady voice in the back of the chest that says, "You are not unknown. You are not abandoned. You are home. Now sit down. Let me tell you everything I know. About the mountain, about the wheel, about the woman who carried you, about the woman who hid you, about the girl who came out the backside of a mountain with a hard drive against her collarbone and saved a valley full of strangers because her mother had taught her before she could walk that some things you do for the people you will never meet. It will take a long time to tell. The girl will listen. The light will move across the floor. The day will get late, and outside, far below the cabin, the valley will keep drinking from a system no one owns. The way water is always drunk, the way water always will.